Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this video, we're going to check out the plugin saturation knob from Softube. So firstly, if you're new to my channel or new to my videos and you like what you see, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all of my future videos as they come out. So saturation knob from Softube, very simple plugin. Pretty much basically one knob to add as much saturation or as little saturation as you want to your tracks. And it doesn't get much simpler than that. You know, there's a switch on there, but we'll talk about that in the video. But other than that, mainly it's about turning a knob. And if you just want some nice sounding saturation, distortion, whatever you want to call it, on your instrument, then you can't get much simpler than this. Now, I got this plugin originally in the days when I was using Pro Tools. It was, I think it may have been included free with Pro Tools, something like that. Somewhere along the lines, anyway, I got it from Pro Tools, and I've still got it now, even though I've moved over to Cubase, just because I have a license for it, because I got it that way. So I'm not sure the process if you wanted to buy this individually, but check it out with Softube. I'm sure you can demo it. So again, this is one of my older videos that has been on my website. Hadn't quite made it to YouTube, but it was a great plugin that I was using a lot, especially with Pro Tools, and definitely worth showing and talking about. So hopefully the quality of the video is okay, and hopefully I'm not too boring in it, but let's check it out anyway.
Okay, so what we've got here to start with is a bass guitar track, and it sounds like this. Okay, not bad, but what if we want to add some saturation? Okay, so here is our Softube saturation knob. As I said, it has very few controls. Our main control here is a big knob called saturation. We have a little light here, which is basically going to be sort of like a clipping type effect, or it's going to show how much sort of distortion is being applied. And then we have our saturation type. Okay, so with the saturation type, we have three options here. We have neutral, keep high, and keep low. So neutral basically applies the distortion or saturation across all of the frequencies equally. Keep low actually retains the low and applies the saturation or distortion onto the high frequencies mainly. And keep high is the exact opposite, which applies the saturation or distortion onto the lows and retains the highs. So we'll sort of get a feel for what that does when we play through it. So there's not much else to talk about here. We've got a setup button, but there really isn't much in there. I wouldn't even bother touching any of that at all. So let's just play the bass and bring it in, and we'll have a listen to it. So you can see the light flickering as the saturation is being applied more heavily. So the one downside to this plugin is that there is no level compensation on this. So to give an example, when you start distorting it, it starts getting louder. And if I bypass the plugin, there'll be an obvious difference in volume. So it's very hard to compare before and after with this plugin. And you're obviously going to have to compensate for that in your mix by reducing the fader of the bass guitar, depending on how much saturation you get. So I guess the trick is to get it to sound the way you want, pretty much, and then obviously then rebalance your fader in the mix to get it to sit the way you want. So let's flick these switches and see what that does with the distortion here. So I'll push the distortion even further just for play. So you can hear there's a pretty big difference between the three settings there. And it basically sounds what you can hear there. You know, when you keep the low, I can hear the low end sort of still sound a bit clear. You know, it's not a massive, obvious, like, oh, it's just distorting the very top and the lows are there. It's still balancing a little bit of distortion across there, but it's obviously leaning more towards one side to the other. So let's check it out on a different track. Okay, so let's try it on an acoustic guitar. So we have this. So there's more of an obvious difference on the keep high with this one because there's not as much low end content in this acoustic guitar. Now, again, obviously I am taking this distortion to some, not extremes, but still a little bit over the top here. You know, the times that I use this is when I just need a little bit more life, a little bit more grit into an instrument. And it's a little bit hard to sort of example this in solo when you're playing one instrument. You know, it's a better, more obvious impact when you do it in the mix. So, you know, for instance, I would probably lean towards doing something a little bit more subtle like this. And it doesn't add that gnarly sort of distortion on the top end, but what it does is it just adds a little bit more oomph and a little bit more life to it. Now, again, obviously there's a volume increase, so it's a bit hard to really judge accurately with this because of that volume increase. You're always going to prefer the louder part. Okay, so what I've done here is I've duplicated the guitar track. I've chopped it up into components here so that it will automatically switch between each. We have one track here on the top that has the saturation knob on it. We have the next track down which does not have the saturation knob on it. It has its volume set to 0, and the one with the saturation knob has its volume dropped down to about -6 dB. That's to compensate for the volume boost that the saturation knob is doing. So let's have a listen and see if you can hear the difference. Now let's try it with the other settings. So there you go. It's very subtle, and that's deliberate because I didn't want that sort of gnarly distortion sound, which you can obviously do. And, you know, but this case I've wanted to use it subtle, just to add a little bit of extra harmonic content to it, little bit of life extra in there. And you can hear it's a very subtle difference, but there is a little bit of extra life in that acoustic guitar there when it kicks in. So you can obviously use this in lots of ways. Okay, you can use this again on a duplicated track that you overly distort and then blend in to add some distortion in the background of an instrument to boost its power. You could put it on vocals, on a duplicate vocal to add a distorted vocal effect. Anything you like. It's saturation. Saturation can be used on almost anything. You can even put it across your entire mix bus if you want to be a bit wild and try your luck on that.
So there you go. There's the saturation knob from Softube. Great little plugin, simple to use, does what it says on the tin, as they say. It's a plugin I used to use all the time when I was running on Pro Tools, but to be honest with you, since I got Decapitator from Sound Toys, I tend to gravitate more to that. But obviously that's a more expensive plugin and a more advanced plugin as such, if you want to call it advanced. Has more than one knob at least. So I tend to use that, but that's because I have it. If you don't have a saturation tool and you like the one sort of knob approach, as waves call them, this Softube one is fantastic, sounds great. And if you're a Pro Tools user, maybe you still get it for free with Pro Tools, I'm not sure. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have it? Do you use it? Go and get a demo if you can and try it out and let me know what you think. Do you like it? Not like it? Love to hear your opinions on it. Hopefully the video was okay and I wasn't too boring. As I stated, it's an older video. If you did like the video, then click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos as they come out. And hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.